So welcome back. This is JDBC Eric again, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you how to update data from the database and delete data also from the database. So here we have pretty much done so many things, and we have come from far. We have been able to save data. We have been able to retrieve that data and put it in the table. We also have methods, and the first one is a method that deletes or removes data from these input fields wherever we click on this button or whenever we save something automatically this data will be removed. And now we also have a method which allows that as a method that allows us to be able to click on the table row and then we click the data back into the text fields. So now we're going to use this data we have here to modify this data. For instance, if I want the price to be 1,500, and then I'll be clicking on update, and if this update button works, the data will be already or immediately saved in the database and then retrieved to be put back here in the table. So this is what we're going to see. So the first thing we need is an event handler, event action performed, and here in this event handler, what we're going to do is get back data from this text field. And a very great thing to remind you is that code for these methods of updating is pretty much almost the same as the codes for saving data in the database. So what we're going to do is we're going to take back this data. Yep, we're going to take these two sections, getting data from the input spaces, and then we send the data into the model class, and we don't need to rewrite it back. And then the next thing is we want to update the data, so we need a method that updates data. So where are we going to put that method? So let's say, like, let's create a method here, a method that will be updating data, private void update, and it will be updating data that was stored into our stock class. So this method is what we're going to be calling, just as we have done here when we're saving. After putting this data into this class stock, after storing them into the variables, what we did is we used this method from the stock DAO class to save data. So here what we are going to do is we are going to take data here and we're going to put it into a direct method, a method that we have here in our class, and this method will be saving this data directly without using the stock DAO class. And as we will progress, I will explain you the reason why we didn't put the code of updating into this DAO class. However, I will also tell you that it is possible, and it is actually better to put this update method into that class. Excuse me a little bit. So after updating the data, what we need to do is to display data, to reset the fields, and to also get a message that tells us that we have successfully updated data. So what we're going to do is to repeat this step, these 3 steps. So what we're going to say is, after you have updated data, we will display in the table the updated data, and then we will reset the fields, we will clean the input fields, and then we are going to display a message that tells us that we have updated successfully. So now we're going to deal with this update method. What do we put in this update method? As we have already created the updated method here, we're going to say, the first thing we're going to do is we get connected as usual. We get connected using this connector object, because this class database connector already have all we need to get connected and dealing with the database. So when we get connection, after getting the connection, we are going to create a query of update query. And after that, we are going to also say, put the query inside and say update stock. And then we say, what do we want to update? We're going to set the fields. So we're going to use precisely those variable names just as they are. So we're going to say set type equals to the value that we're going to put in this placeholder, and the name is also going to be equal to the value we're going to put in this placeholder, and then quantity is also going to be equal to the value we're going to put into the placeholder. So what we need to make sure is that whatever we're going to write in this query, those variable names are precisely the ones written here. So if you make an error, you write the wrong, or you wrongly write a variable here, the code will have an error. Then we say that we're going to update the table called stock, and we're going to set all these variables with the data that we're going to enter. And then we're going to say, to be able to do that, we need to make sure that our name is precisely the one we wanted. So this name, I'm going to use this name because it is our primary key. So it will help us to be able to identify the specific row I want to modify in the database. So the next thing I'm going to do is to use the prepare statement to do prepare statement, and then this prepare statement I will add. So coming back here, we created this prepare statement, and we are going to put this update query in this prepared statement. However, as you have seen before, this prepared statement and connection variables are not declared in this class, but we can find them in this database connector class. So as we have instantiated it and created an object of it, we are now able to use those variables from another class. So here we go. The next thing is we're going to surround this block with try and catch. Why? It is because we might get some errors and exceptions related to the database when we are using these updates queries and this prepare statement and everything else related to SQL. So we have to catch these errors and pretty much everything. So the next thing is we're going to take these placeholders. We're going to add data to these placeholders. So how do we do it? We say connector, just as we have done it when we are saving data in the database. So what I'm going to do is take data, these codes from here, and put it back, and then we're going to say connector, 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 and then we're going to say connec into this method. I'm taking the data or lines of code from this stock DAO class. I'm going to put it here in this stock manager class because it's pretty much the same thing I'm going to do. So here the first thing I will do is I add the stock class because we want to say to update. Okay, we want to update data using the stock class. So what we're going to be saying is we're going to take data from the stock and send it to the database. And another thing is we're going to use the connector So I guess everyone now understand why we're using this connector. So after these, after we have saved the data, we have to do this prepared statement that execute update. So we update. So here, if we revise into this code, we realize that there is one thing that is still missing. We were able to enter the type here, the type from our stock class. We added the name, quality, quantity, price, entry date, but still we have another placeholder which is still empty. How are we going to add this name? So what we're going to do is we should have this name selected or precised from somewhere. So what we're going to say is connector.prepareStatement.set string, and then we say it will be the 7th placeholder, and this 7th placeholder is going to contain the name that we have selected from a table. So how do we get that variable? We're going to go here where we have the codes for the data table most clicked. Here we have clicked a row, and then we want to get a specific value from that row. What we want to get is we want to specify the selected name, and this is easy. We're going to take this name that we have got from the table, and we say selected name. We're going to declare it as a variable. Selected name equals to what we got from the text field. So to be able to use that selected name, we have to make it a global variable. String selected name. So after getting this string selected name as a global variable, now we are able to use it whenever we want. So I gotta make sure that the selected name is properly written. Then what I will do is get data from this row. So this is it. What I did is whenever I click on the table, there will be a variable called selected name. This variable will be holding the data from the table from the row that I've clicked on. So for instance, if I click on this vegetables row of vegetables, and here I will be having the name as cabbage. So this cabbage is going to be saved into this variable. So what is going to happen is that in my SQL query, I'll be saying update stock, whatever I have here, I'm going to update it. I'm going to change maybe whatever I want, and it will update it where the name will be cabbage. If it is cabbage, then you have to update it. So what I'm going to put here in this placeholder of the name, or say I want the selected name to be our placeholder here. So let us try this code and see if it runs or if it works properly. So we select maybe this one and then say, well, we want to change the quantity to 9 and the price to 9,000 and update. So if we update, we now see that the data was updated successfully. Now the quantity is 9 and the price is 9,000. So this is what happens actually. So by repeating the whole steps, what we have been doing, we first created a method called update. And what this method does is it updates data that we have from the database. So how does it work? First of all, it gets data from the text fields. The steps for getting data from the text field are here. We get data as soon as we click on the update button. So when we click on this update button, we get data from the text fields, and there's input components. We send that data to the stock class. The stock class has there's variables which will keep this data in some time before we send the data into the database. So now that we have the data selected and put into this stock class, we are now able to use that data to update the table. So I'm going to use this update method to update data. So what we did is we got connected and we used this update query to update data. We have these placeholders. We have 6 placeholders which will receive the data that we have put inside here. And now we have the 7th placeholder which will contain the name of the row that you have to update. So where will the name come from? The name will come from the specific row that you have clicked on here. If we click on a specific row, this value will be changing. Selected name will be changing to Cakes 12 or Fanta 1. And then that is what we're going to use the name that we have here to update the table into the database. So this is it for the update button, and the last video is going to be about deleting data from the database.